Today in art, we're going to be creating watercolor birds. First thing is to gather your materials. You are going to need a tray of watercolors. I already pre-filled them with water so that the color can sit longer and become more rich. You need a cup of water. You need a few paint brushes, some different sizes would be good. You are going to need a paper towel to add texture. And then you will need some salt, or get some salt from your teacher when you need it. You don't necessarily need it right away. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create the watercolor bird bodies. You only have the requirement of having 6 or more birds in your picture. You can do more than 6, but you must have at least 6. Generally, I would come up with an idea on a color scheme so that they look good together. I wouldn't just go in there and do random colors without thinking about it a little bit first. Okay, so the cool part about this is that you can kind of just jump in and you don't have to really overthink things. You don't have to worry about the shape. Just go in and make some blob bird type shapes. Okay, so the first one I just went in and painted. I'm going to show some other options. You can always go through as well and make kind of like a little hook shape. Rinse out your paintbrush, squeeze the water out of it, and then pull that out. That's going to give you a variety of value in there. That also adds depth. It makes it look like this pops out, and then this kind of goes back in the distance. If I do that and then I look at this and I'm like, oh man, I wish I did that there, you can rinse out your brush, dry it out again by just squeezing the water out of it, and then go back over it, and you'll be able to see a little bit of that effect. You can also come over the top of it with white watercolor, if you have white watercolor, and add some little highlights in there. Ooh, that one had blue, which looks kind of cool. Okay, so I'm going to keep going with this. There's a couple different ways that we can mix colors. One way is by doing wet on wet. So you have your wet watercolor, and then you go over top with another color that's also wet, and you can kind of blend that in. That's wet on wet. That will keep blending until that's dry. You'll see that these two will kind of combine. And then the other way is by doing wet on dry. So that would be if I waited for one of these colors to dry and then I came back in and added some more of that color once it was dry. Okay, these birds generally look pretty good if you're adding texture. As you saw with this one, I went ahead and added some texture on it with the yellow. Some other ways that you can add texture would be to use the paper towel, scrunch it up, and then push down. There are other things around the room you could probably use for that as well. Tissues, cotton, all kinds of different stuff. Okay, I need to kind of tie my colors together a little bit. Add a little in here. I don't want my birds to touch. If my birds end up touching, the colors are going to blend together. So they can be close, but unless the other one is dry, I don't want them to touch. Okay, to kind of make these colors look so that they go together a little bit better, I'm maybe going to add a little bit of red to this purple. I accidentally touched the other one, but that'll be okay. And I think it's a little too bright right here, so I'm going to rinse out my brush, dry it out, and then go over the top. And that'll pull up some of that color. Okay, whoop, that was an accident. All right, so when accidents happen, do the same thing again. You can dry out your brush and then go over top, and it'll suck up a lot of that color. The other thing we can do is if you have a clean paper towel or a clean corner of it, you can just go over top. Good thing I can do whatever I want with these birds because now I can kind of come over the top and cover that up. Okay, and I think I need one more. Let's do... let me put one up here. And this one looks like it needs a little more depth, so I'm going to add some color to it. Okay, so another tool we can use is salt. Salt is really cool. What happens is when you put it on wet watercolor, the salt will absorb all of the color in that given area, and then once it dries we wipe it off and it leaves like a little lighter spot. So I'm just going to choose a couple places to add some salt to. Rubbing alcohol has a similar effect. Okay, when we do this, we are going to wait a little bit for it to dry, and then we're going to go ahead and add some details. While you're doing that, I want you to think about the background and the environment that the birds are in, and think about if you would like to add anything else to it. So some of the other ones I did, these birds are on a branch. These ones are on the grass. And then these ones are looking for seeds. So this was the first one I did, as you can probably tell. Didn't turn out quite as good as the others. Reasons I think that is, one reason maybe is that the shapes I went a little crazy with. Also the colors don't really go together. I have a representation of almost every color, but they don't have a lot of unity to them. Okay, so these are starting to dry, so I can start to try to figure out how they're all going to work as birds. I think I'm going to have them standing on a wire. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a wire on there with my Sharpie pen. And I'm going to make it kind of sagging a little bit, like they're maybe a little too heavy for it. Okay, to me for some reason it feels like this bird is turned. Maybe looking to the back. So I'm going to go ahead and add that bird's beak. And add a little bit of a bottom of a beak. And I'm only going to want to see that one eye. So add the one eye to it. Since it's turned that way, I'd probably be able to see some of its tail. I don't really know how I want that one's tail to be. I'm going to have these feather type things come out. And kind of overlap. Okay, and then I'm going to have one leg come down. I'm going to keep the toes really simple. And this leg would be behind. I'll do that one. Okay, I'm going to put you in fast forward mode while I draw some other things on here, and you can see what I do.